Welcome to the Backstage Creative. My name is Krista Copper. I'm so glad that you're here. On this podcast, I interview people who work behind the scenes of theater. I'm a musician, I'm a bass player, and I love theater. I think it's just such a unique art form. It's just such a beautiful representation of what can be accomplished when people with different skill sets and different backgrounds come together to create something. And it's just, I love it. um, Today's my conversation with sound designer and musician Luqman Brown. Ugh, this interview, it was just one of those times where just about every technological problem that you can have when you're trying to record a podcast happened. So I so appreciate Luqman's patience as I worked through these technology problems that were happening for who knows why. Uh, I'm a bit of a technology curmudgeon. I only use it because I have to in order to function in today's world. But technology is really not something that I'm very passionate about. So it was, yeah, when things like this happen and when you have a lot of technological problems, I get easily frustrated because there's no rhyme or reason why they happen, and it makes me angry. But anyway, Lukman was great throughout all of that. We eventually got a really good interview, and so I'm glad that I get to share it with you. And I'm glad that technology finally decided to do what it's supposed to do, and we got the interview. So I guess that's what matters in the end. Anyway, here we go. Here's my conversation with Luqman Brown. Start with your background, where you're from, where you went to school, if you went to school, and how you got to where you are today.
All right, my name is Luqman Brown. I'm from Harlem, New York. I didn't go to school, not for music anyway. I was a musician, had 30 years being a musician, touring band called Funk Face. You can check it out at funkfacenyc.com. So one day, right, so I played music a lot, like it was pretty much a musician who had skills in that. You know what I mean? Like I knew how to
Mhm.
record myself in a studio. I knew how to play gigs sound wise. I knew how to take care of the sound for myself or the group around, I think it was 2010. Yeah, I think it was 2010. A friend of mine named Freedom Bailey. I'm sorry, Freedom Bradley, and he suggested that I do music for his plays, and he was working as putting on plays in the parks through Summer Stage in New York City. So he thought that I could do it, and there was this young playwright who had a play named Rada Blank, and that was the first play I ever did. It was her 3-act play. It was pretty amazing. Like, the first time I did it on iTunes. Did all the sound on iTunes, and it was pretty crazy. And now Rada has a movie out called the 40-year-old version, and she asked me to do music for that, and it was pretty cool. So in the movie, it's about a play, and she puts the play on. There's this scene where they go to the play and the music starts, and that's the music I did. It's this thing called Harlem Ave, and it's pretty funny, man. It's really good. And from there, so just from that 3-act play that I did in the park, I got hooked. Like it went from there. Like pretty steadily. Then after that, I started getting gigs, like theaters all around the country. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Was there anything surprising kind of transitioning from being a touring musician to being a sound designer? Like, was there anything that you're like, oh, I didn't know that, sound designers did this or this is how theater worked?
Totally. There was some things like learning QLab. Like I had to learn QLab backwards and forwards. And it was like, it was a crazy program. And at first it seemed daunting. But then, it's like pretty self-intuitive and pretty intuitive. I got it down, And then the other thing was, it was like I was the center of attention in the touring thing, with my band. I was the lead singer. I played, guitar and stuff, and I had to take the background, you know what I mean? And that
Hmm.
was, at first it was kind of tough. Like if people didn't like my music, I would just ignore them and keep writing music. But in a play, if they don't like it, you got to change it right away. So it was kind of weird and frustrating at first, but it became really cool. I really love it doing sound for plays.
Hmm. Are you still in? Do you still do Funk Face?
Oh yes, we've been 30 years now, 30
That's
plus
awesome.
years. Yeah, we're selling on. I have this label called Buddha Bug Records, and I'm selling a lot of records on there, buddhabugrecords.com, and on Instagram. It's pretty cool, man. We've got like plenty to sell, and I'm putting out a new record next year, and it should be cool. We got mad fans, so.
I love that. So what has kept you in the music industry, in the theater entertainment industry for as long as you've been in it? Because it's hard. It can be a really hard life. So what's kept you going?
I don't know, but because it's really hard. I think that was all that I knew. You know what I mean? Like I've been doing music so long. When we were successful in the very beginning, in the 90s, we were really successful, early 90s. And then came 95, we went down and I struggled and I just kept going. And then when it got into the two, like I started doing like different types of music and I was like, I felt fake by doing that instead of continuing like funk and rock and punk and started doing electronic music. And I liked doing it, but it wasn't me. But I,
Hmm.
I kept going and I pushed it. Like I toured solo as a solo artist for a long time, and it kept paying me. That's the main reason. I had a lot of money to keep going and doing this. And it got into the year 2000. That was at my lowest point. I was in 2000. I was like, people would stop listening, and I didn't know what to do. And then 2010, this guy offered me an opportunity, to make music and get paid. I took it, not knowing what it was. I had to call my dad. My dad's Carl Brown, who's a famous playwright.
Hmm.
I said to him, I said, Dad, what does a sound designer do? And now he comes back to me, what does a sound designer do? Ha ha ha. He always laughs at me for asking him that. It keeps me going. It keeps the music going. And now I'm transitioning from theater into film. That's even cooler. You know what I mean? It's really cool. So I think, like you got to stick with it. If you do music and you're good at it, you should stick with it because kept me alive, kept me eating, kept me working for many, 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 many years. Since I got out of high school, I've been doing music.
Hmm.
I'm about to turn 50, and it's pretty dope.
Yeah, that's incredible. When I've thought about quitting, I think, well, I don't really know how to do anything else. Like this is what
Totally.
I know how to do, so I guess I'll just keep going.
You're right, man. It's true. People come, like I have a studio here in Harlem. I've been lucky enough that people call me up and want to record here in my house. So, like this week, I've got Jimmy Hazel from 24/7 Spies, which is a pretty well known black rock group. This other guy called Suede has also wanted to collaborate with me. And it's like pretty cool, man. You just can't give up, especially when you're good at something.
Yeah, I love that. When you get asked to design for sound for a play, where are you finding your inspiration for the sound and the music for that play?
Well, what I usually do is I read the script and I get a feel for the script. And then I get the emotionality of the script. Like some scripts just jump at you with emotionality. And then you just can write it instantly, some music. Sometimes you read a script and it's kind of hard to discern what's going to happen in my head, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
um you don't get the emotionality so easy sometimes. So then what I usually do is I talk to the director and get a feel for what they feel. Then I talk to the writer, get a feel for what they feel. Then I go back into my house and I don't know where it comes from because I don't question how thought process comes through my head. I just let it come.
Hmm.
And you can get inspiration from anywhere. Like you go out on a day, you're walking through the streets and you hear some like a pothole ring from a truck going over it. And you're like, oh yeah, and then that'll be the inspiration for the top of show, the music that comes in. Sometimes it'll be, I'll be sitting in the house and playing the piano for a little while. And sometimes I come across a melody, and that could be the inspiration. Inspiration could strike you from almost anywhere. Lately, I've been getting inspiration from comic books, reading comics. And they're like, I'm reading this crazy comic. I got an idea for some lyrics. And I was like, oh, yeah, he's talking about how he amps his power up, the power level. He like how he gets his powers up. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a cool idea. I write a song called Amped Up. And it's pretty dope. And anywhere you can get inspiration.
Yeah, I love that. Just, going through life with an openness, always being open to, receiving whatever is out there.
Oh, totally. You have to be open in this business. We have to always be open because this job is about emotion
Hmm.
and translating the emotion to the audience. How can you do that if you're not open to new experiences, new shit? You got to be,
Hmm.
you got to travel, you got to live life so you can know what the open things are. You know what I mean? 30 years of touring definitely has left me open.
So are you so thinking about like sound effects, are you designing, creating most of your sound effects, or are you pulling from like online sources?
I do a little bit of both. I think pulling the online sources from like YouTube is kind of corny. I like to do Foley sound, creating my own sounds. I have it in a hard drive. I have like 5 hard drives, 5 1 terabyte hard drives full of sounds. You know what I mean? And they're like sounds that I've either recorded from the street or in nature. Like I had to do this play right before COVID hit. I didn't do the play, but I had to get ready for it. I had these sounds I had recorded. Me and my girlfriend went camping, and they needed sounds from the woods outside of Chicago, like in Michigan State woods is where the play took place. And we went camping not far from there. I love to go camping. That's my thing, my hobby, So me and my girlfriend, we were in the woods and I had a recorder and I just recorded everything, man. Like I recorded the lake, I recorded the little ripple sounds, I recorded the wind, all these things. And then she said she needed sounds from that part of the world. And I was like, great, I got it already. It's pretty cool. And then, like there's different things you can do. Like sometimes there was this play that I did in not Louisville. Yes, in Louisville. It was about these people that were like aliens that like had an alien encounter and it had to come down. A spaceship had to come down and suck them up. I had taken the sounds of like a blender, my blender at home, and I had these sounds of like the cable wire from a telephone pole, and you hit it,
Mm.
it goes doo 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 doo, and took the blender sounds and mixed them together, and it made it sound so futuristic. It was dope, you know. And I love doing that, like taking sounds from anywhere. It's a really cool thing to do. But sometimes, like if I don't have a sound that they're like, oh, we need this direct sound, and I'm like, all right, and then I'll pull it from YouTube or online. The one place that I went online is there's this site where they get audio from real life situations, and they set this in where was it? It was in Norway. They had this library, a small library, and they put mics all around this house and all inside the house, and they set it on fire. The sounds were so freaking cool. It's like the best fire sounds I've ever heard. And they got like, I mean, they burnt mics for this shit.
Wow.
You know what I mean? They burnt like, I mean, the mics that were inside the library got burnt up and burnt down, and you can hear it when they start burning the mics. It was so freaking cool. I mean, nobody gets excited about that, but I was excited. I think people thought it was weird, but I was showing my girlfriend. I was like, "Look, oh my god, doesn't it sound crazy cool?" She's like, "No." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, I love to ask sound designers this question. Have you ever done like anything dangerous or illegal to get a sound?
Oh yeah, like the telephone pole. It was like electrical wire. Had to climb up there, hit it. It was crazy. I could have got arrested or hurt. I mean, not too dangerous, but yes, I've had a few run-ins with the cops trying to get sound.
Do you have to say like, no, it's for theater, it's for art? Like how do you get out of that?
Well, the one time I climbed up the pole, the guy was like, "What are you doing, man? You could get killed like that." And I was like, "It's for art, man." I was like, he's like, "Forget that art jazz. Here's a ticket." You know what I mean? Like I was like, "Oh, okay." I understood, but I was like, it's crazy.
Do you ever get stuck when you're designing, and how do you get yourself out of that?
Yes, I have. During a play, this woman needed a sound of the light turning off. And it was pretty simple light, so I had it. She goes, "Well, can you make it sadder?" And I had no clue what she meant by that. I had no clue. I got mad because she insisted. I was like, "Can you explain it?" She's like, "I don't know how else to explain it. It needs to be a sad turning off of the light." And I was like, "Jesus Christ, this is crazy. How does a sad light sound turning off?" And I did a bunch of stuff, but she didn't like it. I called a friend. I called someone that I trusted who does sound as well, but he's more of like, he does movie trailers and movies, he does music. So I was like, yeah, this woman wants me to make a sound of the light turning off sad. And he said, did you try this? Did you try that? And I was like, I tried all that. And he goes, you know what? You need to think of it like a music problem. Think of it musically. And I was like, okay. And so I played it. And she liked that. And I was like, this is weird, but okay. It wasn't a simple click or anything else. I had to play, or you know what I mean? Like a strange chord.
Hmm.
And she was like, that's perfect. So I think whenever I get stuck, I call up a friend or someone else who's more knowledgeable than me and more knowledgeable in sound. I call up my friend Rob Kapowitz, who's really well known as a sound designer. And he's kind of like sort of my mentor in a way. I call him up a lot. How do you do this? How do you do that?
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about theater is that it's so collaborative. It sounds like you collaborate with a lot of people, both as a musician with your band and your studio, and then also as a sound designer. I want to talk about collaboration. So, what makes collaboration effective? What makes it work?
People who listen. Listening is the most important thing. Oh my God. Like if someone doesn't listen to your idea, and like the person has to be able to listen to your idea, try it out. If it doesn't work, we go on. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
that's the important part of collaboration. Listening to it, having intellectual, decisive reasoning about the thing that you created, and deciding whether or not they could use it or how it works for the scene or for the music or anything. Yeah, then they can move on from there. Like I love collaborations where it's flowing really nice. Like it's so great, man. It's so great. Like the best collaboration I ever had was with Patricia McGregor at it was in San Diego. What's the theater there? Anyway, it was at this theater in San Diego, and we were discussing this. All right, so in the play, this guy gets angry and smashes a table. And I was like, all right, so we'll put a mic under and she wanted to feel the tension of his anger. Like he's like got a table, he smashes it right there, right? And the guy behind the desk is like, oh my God. But she wanted a moment where he smashes the table and he's like, you feel his anger and tension and it starts going crazy. So I was like, what could we do to make this sound crazy? So this guy had this piece of glass on the top of the table. It was a thicker kind of glass, right? And I said, let's put a mic under this glass. And when he smashes it with its hands, you can, it was a plate glass, So when he smashes it, you'll hear the crackling of the glass. And I didn't know how well it would work. And she was like, oh, I don't know. That's a lot a lot of money that we have to spend on the production for glass tables, but let's try it once. She was cool, like let's try it once. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, and then we'll decide how we can institute this into the budget. It worked so perfectly. Like he smashed the glass and it went, it kept breaking, kept cracking, and it was like his facade was breaking. He was cracking under the pressure and getting angrier and angrier. And then I had like this while the crack was going, I had the high pitched low level sound of e coming up and like and it went with the cracking from the natural glass. It was so cool. And I was like, see, that's thank you for listening to me. You know what I mean? Because that made the scene so much more real and more, volatile and, you know, you could touch it. It was so real.
Yeah, some of the times in life where I get the most frustrated is when you voice an idea and someone just says no right away without even, taking a few seconds to even like think about it or consider it. Yeah, when you work with people who pause and think about it and then say, "Okay, well, I'm hesitant, but let's try it anyway." Yeah, that's where magic happens.
Totally. And I mean, that's what I love about Patricia McGregor. She's a great director, man, and she listens to her. She knows who to pick. When she picks them, she listens to them. You know what I mean? And it's beautiful.
How do you handle, you kind of touched on this earlier, criticism. When someone criticizes your work, or what do you do with that?
Well, in the beginning, when I first started, I used to get pissed off. I'm like, why you don't like my sounds? Why you don't like my music? I worked so hard on this shit. What the fuck? And it was like I was kind of babyish about it. But now when they don't like it, I've learned that not everybody can like everything.
Yeah.
So I have to give them different options. So even in when I'm making sounds, I always have 5 different versions. So if I give them the first version, they're like, oh, that's cool. You got anything else? Sure, here you go. Oh, well, and I figure 5 is the limit of, like, after 5, they have to figure it out by then. You know what I mean? You have to just let it slide off your back. You know what I mean? If they don't like a sound, give them another sound. If they don't like your music, give them some more music. Not everybody's going to like everything. And then when they really don't like anything that you have, you might as well, if you can't think of anything, get someone else to make it. Like I call my friend Brian or call my friend Rob and say, hey, look, can you write a song for me? And you give them the money for it. It's the best way. It's the best way to do for your business. It's the best way for the play. You know what I mean? You should just take criticism with a grain of salt and let it slide off your back. If they like it, really like it, cool. Now it's off to the next sound. And if they don't like it, cool. Here's a couple of other sounds. You can't really look at criticism in a bad way. You just got to kind of take it and keep it moving.
Yeah, I've learned to kind of take my ego out of it. Take, like when someone criticizes something you do, to not take it as, oh, they're criticizing me as a person.
Totally. That's exactly right. Because in the beginning, I felt like they were saying, you're shit. But they're not
Hmm.
saying that. They're just saying, we don't like this sound. Because afterwards, you go out for a drink and they're buying you drinks and you drink and they drink. And it's pretty cool. Oh, he doesn't hate me. He just didn't like that sound. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah, you got to take your ego out of it.
Yeah, as artists, it's so easy to take things personally.
Oh my God, yes. Especially in the beginning when
Hmm.
you're first starting out. Because especially when you write something, you pour your heart into it. But I've got like this way of detaching myself from my music now. Like I put all my all into it, and then afterwards I detach myself because it it's up to the listener. They interpret whatever they're going to hear, and it's not me anymore. You know what I mean? Like I could put all my emotion into a song, all my feelings and everything, and then it goes out to the world. And after that, it's out of my hands. And I have to think like that. Like I was like, all right, some people are gonna like this, some people are gonna say boo ha ha, and some people are gonna say yeah. And you just have to take ego out after you put ego in.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I think that goes back to like that's one of the ways that helps your longevity in a field because you're not letting yourself get so beaten up all the time over like criticism and negativity.
Oh, totally. I mean, that's what, like when I told you before that in the beginning of 2000, I started having I was depressed and it was my lowest moment. That was because I felt like I had years and years of feeling like nobody liked me because my music sucked. I had to really think about it. I had to really put myself in a corner and be like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I crying every time I put a record out and nobody likes it? Somebody liked it. I just didn't hear that person say he liked it. But I
Mhm.
was like, why is that? Like, why am I crying? And I decided that I needed to take my ego out of it after I put my ego in, my emotion, everything in it. And then afterwards, I needed to take it out because I couldn't continue anymore being so emotional about music, especially in theater. It has to be, you have to really separate yourself from that.
Yeah, I totally agree. What do you hope to achieve with your sound design? Like at like a macro large level, what do you hope to achieve?
Jesus, I don't know. I was always thinking to get paid. I hope to achieve to get paid. I don't know. I've won a few awards. Nothing really major though. I'd like to win a Tony. I'd like to win an Academy Award for some sound that I did. I don't even need the awards. You know what I mean? I say that, but it's bullshit. I've already won. I'm living my life musically. I'm living totally the way I want. I'm building guitars over here in my house. I've already won with my music. Spotify puts out this 2020 wrap up, and this year I had 13.6 thousand streams. Listened for the listeners listened for 633 hours. Had 4,000 listeners in 67 countries. And I found out that the most countries that listened to my record were in some 1,200 people were in Russia.
Interesting.
Really interesting. And I was like, that's cool, man. I love that people are listening. I just want to keep people listening. I don't need anything more. I don't know what the goal is. It's to be creative and make people smile, make them dance, make them feel something, other than their everyday humdrum going through the day kind of boring lives.
Mhm.
That's why I can't wait for this pandemic to be over so we can go back to work.
Oh man, I hear you. Yeah, I feel the same way. I knew someone who was a he had won a Grammy for I think it was like audio engineering or something, but he kept his Grammy on top of his toilet to remind himself that it doesn't matter, and I just love that.
That's word. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I don't, I don't need anything.
So the last question I like to ask everyone is, what advice would you give to young? So in your case, like young sound designers, young musicians who want to make a living doing their art.
Well, first of all, you got to know you want to do it. And if you're going to do it, you got to do it right, stick to it. You got to know QLab backwards and forwards. That's the one thing that I say. You got to always know QLab. Third thing is be open, man. Travel the world first or while you're doing it. You could go someplace like Madagascar and hear some cool stuff and put it in your sound design for a play for someone. Or in a weird place in Africa, travel. The other thing I would say is open your ears and listen, really listen, and keep your ego in check.
The music for the Backstage Creative was improvised and performed by Ian Leroy, and the logo was designed by Zach Rimbold.